Yep. There we go. Some light on my face. Alright, good morning. Welcome to another stream of Lyrebird edits. Thank you for waiting with me while I set up today. We're starting a tiny bit late, but that's okay. Have you been well? Hope your Saturday? Yeah, we've only had one day between streams. Good morning, Mookie MC. I feel like I've been walked out on stage to like a pub setting, and there's just one guy in the back going, Lyrebird. Like, yes, guy in the back, thank you for coming out. And it's just like crickets everywhere else. There's nothing else here. Morning, Naz. How you doing? Good morning. Alrighty. Let me just get a couple of things set up. I don't think anything else is too bad. I love you too, random audience member. Yeah. And now I'm gonna play Wonderwall. It's a complicated song, and it's quite unique, so I feel like it'll draw a connection between us. Morning, Octavia Memories. Good morning. Lemon Taito, dude, are you in your jammies? No, I'm not in my jammies. This is a shirt I would wear out anywhere, in public, to any quality location, to prove I'm not in my pajamas. I've got like proper pants on. Wait, hang on. Lyrebird knees. Shut up and play the music! Champagne Supernova is better. Contentious opinion. I'll have to flat out reject that opinion. Fight me. What kind of costume do I sleep in, Octavia? What kind of costume? Good stuff. The proper pants is subjective. That's true. I mean, what are these? Like black chinos. Yeah, I wonder like what's the least amount of pants you can get before you stop calling them pants and you start calling them something else. So I think Lyman Taito has cottoned onto the fact that I'm in fact wearing. I'll come a bit closer to the camera. Hang on. This shirt is awful. Okay, a friend of mine was at Uniqlo. Well, lots of my friends know how much I despise Minions, and a friend was at Uniqlo and she took a photo of this shirt. And my first reaction was to vomit a little bit into my mouth, but my second reaction was kind of like, that's kind of a nice shirt. So I asked her to buy it for me. And then my girlfriend ended up getting it from Uniqlo, so thank you, girlfriend. Thank you for the lovely shirt. I'm gonna try and wear this in public at least once. She knows how much I hate minions too. I don't think I've ever showed you guys this, but she also got me this minion for my birthday. It's probably the worst birthday I've had on account of this thing. This one's called Tourist Dave. You can see he's got little minion like travel gloves. I don't know who would wear these. And travel goggles. So yeah, today I'm really in the minion zone, and my sense of self-worth is very low right now. So yeah, bear with me. I think two pajamas. Let's see. That's very colourful, Octavia Memories. It's kind of like a Lyrebird costume, isn't it? This is what Octavia sent to me. Yeah, this is casual wear in Australia. You walk down to the pub, people are like, "Oh, this is Dave in his Lyrebird costume." You know how it is. I think that's the rule of thumb. You don't ever show people your weakness, and this also goes for stream as well. Like, you never be honest with people over Twitch because they'll exploit your weaknesses. They will crush you and find a way to just carve out and hollow out your soul. So yeah, if you ever start streaming, never tell people you don't like minions because you'll end up kind of liking them, like hate liking them, and then I don't know. It's all cards are off the table then. You need to work as an accountant. Wow, could you imagine? Ah, so good. Okay, I wanted to show you guys something. Bear with me a tick. So on love means having your soul hollowed out. Sort of. It does sound like the plot summary of an Adult Swim show. Oh, great. Okay, let's dive in. So, on Friday, I was showing a story that I've been working on the past couple of weeks, and that came from Sorry, let me get my thoughts in order. Yeah, on Friday I was showing off this story, and it's a series of letters. We managed to get through two of them, and today we'll be going through letter three, this one, but I kind of wanted to go back to letter one today and point out something that I thought of after the stream. So just to give you guys a bit of a recap as to what this story is about, it's about a soldier in early 1930s who is a member of the Japanese Imperial Army, and he is sent off from the homeland into the north of Korea, and which is currently in this time frame under the control of Japan. He's going to form part of like a little espionage group. And I suppose his adventures within the war, the part leading up to World War II, there's another war there. He will write letters back to his childhood friend about what he gets up to along the journey. But woven into that is also this magic realism element where he's like sort of followed around and shadowed by this god of death, who's a child wearing a deer skull. So it's all a bit morbid, and parts of the story are a bit intense, but what we're dealing with here in the opening sense is when the main character meets this demon for the first time before he goes off overseas. Hey, good morning, Sayaka. Yeah, that's right, we're dealing with a story that I've written. Um, What the fuck is that your shirt? I'm sorry. I have to come out of the minion closet and declare to you that I'll move forward a bit more, Sayaka, so you can see it. Hang on. I think you'll appreciate the pastiche of minions. Look, they're all surf themed. Oh, isn't that cute? Oh. Ah. Yeah, I've lost my mind. Compliments to the girlfriend for buying this shirt for me, though. Corrupted, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So if you want to catch up to speed with this story, you can go onto YouTube and watch the last stream's worth of editing. But I wanted to show you something about... Oh, hey Rufus, how you doing? Good morning. You're back with some sick burns. Rufus, I'm an easy target today. You can see the shirt I'm wearing is chock-a-block full of minions. So, just let it rip. I'm you can say what you like. I yeah, I streamed to YouTube because last year I decided that Um, I was very lazy in re-uploading videos after I had recorded them, and YouTube does auto backup. So as soon as you finish streaming on YouTube, it saves it forever. Unlike Twitch, which is like, oh, like a fortnight is enough, right? But so I think it's important to have a backup of these. I got very lazy in re-uploading them, so I was like, hey, I'll just double stream to YouTube. So that's where other people can come in and see, but Twitch is mainly where it's at. Thank you, Mookie MC. Enjoy work. Thank you for stopping in to say hi. Yeah, exactly. That's right. So the downside is that I can't be an athlete if I double stream to YouTube. I probably could be an athlete if I delayed the stream by 3 hours. So I stream on Twitch, and then immediately after I go off, it starts to stream and record on YouTube. I can set that up, I think, but the service I use, which is Restream, I don't know if it does that. So I'll have to look into that. But like, I'm not concerned about the Atholite thing anyway. Hegemonious perversion. I think you're right, Octavia, in that you're allowed to stream, but your content can be uploaded to another platform as long as it's not double streamed at the same time. That's my understanding, at least. I could be wrong about that. So, um, but in terms of like there's a difference between streaming and uploading video content, because streaming is a live thing. I don't know. There's some sort of legal thing. It doesn't strictly matter for my case though. But that'd be interesting to dig down to and to understand further. Maybe you've got a better understanding of it. Um, Back into this though. I've got to start pushing through. No, I think I'm going to keep this one sequestered away from your hands, Sayaka, just for now. I think I can put one in Discord a bit later, but I think I may just sort of keep it to me for the purposes of this line edit. Thanks for the offer, though. Um, just feel free to scream some stuff out as we're going along. Now, one thing that I thought of about this story that I wanted to not change, but I guess talk about before we go on is where was it? It's here. So it may look a bit messy, but what happens in this story is the main character sort of he's pulled into the forest behind his home, behind a graveyard actually. It's built into the side of a hill, so he's kind of pulled in there by this otherworldly, I guess like a not like a song, but like a presence that sort of calls him in, and he eventually stumbles across this sort of human-sized god of death who is in the middle of taking apart a a deer or a doe. I'm not. It's probably a deer. It's deep in the viscera. Here we go. So now, the purpose of this scene here is that my main character sees this other spirit for the first time, and I want to give the impression that when he comes in and stumbles upon seeing her, um, it's implied that she's like come across this deer, taken off its head, and stripped it clean and put the skull on her shoulders, which is a bit morbid. But I was thinking to myself after the edit, I'll read out this section here for you, and I'll give you a feel of it. Take my worthless presence, else. No, you stay right there, Sayaka. Your presence is never worthless. Yeah, exactly. So Lambent Taito, this is my story. Um, yes, and I did this little section here on Friday. If you want to go and watch that edit, you can go onto YouTube. Um, but yeah, this is my story. So, I guess when I'm editing my own work, I will miss things because it's my story and I have my own sense of what's going on. So therefore, if you think that anything here needs changing, please let me know, because I always value people's opinions. Um, and it's never quite the same when you edit your own work versus other people's work. Question of if it's chest ripped open. That was the one with creature in the void with its chest ripped open. Was that the one with the bird that comes down on the side of a lifeboat? I finished the first little chapter of that, but I haven't continued on just yet. And then through the trees, I caught my first glimpse of her. I saw the demon. At first I mistook the child for a human. The general sexless shape of the creature was human. Get rid of that comma. And I'll just turn on to suggestions mode there. I can be certain of that, but the closer I drew, the less real it became. Quiet, slow. I passed around the thicket and saw the scene in full then. I saw everything and my heart shuddered. The demon was kneeling down beside the corpse of a deer, so thoroughly decomposed that its skin was the colour of the night sky. No stars, which is a reference to another night sky metaphor I used above. Just ribs and organs split through the side, as if a giant monster had taken a sticky bite from the abdomen. A head misshapen and flat like a rubber tire with the air let down. That's a sentence fragment, so I can put something like I saw. Emptied, boneless, and the demon girl beside the corpse with her hands wrist deep inside the viscera, wearing the creature's skull upon her shoulders. The demon, the deer, a light in the aura of the forest, when that was addressed a little further up. Now what I want to talk about here, I mean there are other things I can improve on here, once it's all been corrected and edited again, but there's a question here about, and why I wanted to start this edit with this, is that, is this the strongest way that I can introduce the god of death, so to speak? And one of the thoughts I had was like a comparative thought. So if you imagine that this scene takes place in a couple of different ways, with my main character stumbling out from the forest and seeing this childlike thing with her hands inside a deer, versus actually I might read a little more just to give you a bit more detail. Tomo, please believe me, none of the following is a lie. Her head was wrong, mismatched, replaced. Instead of human, I saw a dark skull. A hollow and eyeless mistake that oozed with little trails of skin, fresh skin. Below the horror, the demon wore a yukata of every good colour, silk and pure, glowing like the moon of a soft night. It covered her little frame right up to the cut of her shoulders. One horrible moment, it all came over me. So this is sort of the first glimpse that you have of this creature that's been pulling my main character in from the streets and into the forest for a friendly chat. So is this the strongest way that I can introduce this demon? This is more of a developmental thing that I'm talking about, and less of a line by line thing. One idea that I had was to show the god of death kneeling beside the deer and twisting off its head. Another idea would be holding the skull in its arms and stripping the flesh away. So, like, peeling the skull before placing the skull on her empty shoulders. So this would also require, also requires me to establish the fact that she is headless. So whatever I choose, I need to think about how I'm going to rewrite this. But if you have a comparative side by side um, shock value sense, like what is the most effective way of me showing you as a reader that um, this is a god of death, or this is something a bit unusual, this is surreal, this is like sort of semi-magical. And I think the more demonstrative the scene is, the better it is. Here, it's just, oh, she's just kneeling down beside it, and she's got the skull on already, and she's like fiddling around with its organs, which is one way to do it. But I sort of felt like after I finished the stream and over yesterday, I was thinking, like, you know, it'd be kind of stronger if I actually just showed her taking off the head, stripping it, and putting it on on the shoulders. Trouble is that that's quite a long sequence of events. So I like personally the third idea where you have this mixture of implication and action. This implies too much about what happened. But if I can get my main character to stumble into the scene and to see the dear god like taking off, this is really morbid, but if I can get her to take off the strips of flesh and toss them aside or something, and then with the empty skull, like plonk it on her shoulders and fix it in place, and then turn around to my main character and be like, "Hi." That's kind of what I want, without the hi. Hi, Octavia memories. I've spooked you away. But yeah, no, thanks for joining. Yeah, that was the story that I was dealing with before. I gotta finish that story actually. Gotta finish my PhD first. I mean, how hard can that be? It's a PhD. What even is that? Yeah. And so I wanted to show you guys that because in addition to this needing a lot more work, I will put a gentle reminder out there that this is my first draft, and what you're seeing here is the very first edit ever. So I haven't gone through this before to do anything like any form of editing, because I guess I wanted to show people on Friday what I go through when it's like my first pass editing. And so you'll see that today as well with letter number 3. Yeah, good question. So the bit about the skull on her shoulder seems a bit distracting to me. It's a mask, right? I get this odd image when you say it's on her shoulders. So I need to clarify that because in my sense, she's headless. She doesn't have a head. She just has the deer skull, and it has to be hollow on the inside. Which means I need to rewrite this. So his first impression of her needs to be... So for instance, here in this gap, what I can do is, for this real she became... just also a heads up, this is in the form of a letter to someone else, so in the way that you're telling a story to someone else who wasn't there, I can kind of try and weave in a sentence like, but the closer I drew, the less real she became. No... Um, no, not bear. Not that bear. What did I bear witness to? Oh, it is bear witness, not bear as in naked. Okay, good. Glad I cleared that up. So this is placeholder here. But I can link in a sentence like that to imply that she's headless. And then has to put the head on. So I've got a lot of work to do here in terms of what the what the girl looks like, how she's introduced, and I won't get this right until about like another two or three subsequent edits. Um, oh no, cutting internet. I feel you. I know what you're going through. Remember last year when I was like just starting off streaming, I was using my home internet, um, and I drop out all the time. I don't know how people put up with me. But yeah, thank you for putting up with me when I did that. It's impossible to get everything right on your first pass through. What you want to do with your first chunk of writing is to get your ideas down, and then to, I guess, self correct and criticize and critique them yourself as you go through and do edits. So now that makes sense. Exactly right. But that was my fault for not communicating that properly. So it's really good that you mentioned that, because otherwise I wouldn't have an impression of what needed to change. Um, so what I added here hopefully clears that up. It's often a really simple fix, but you yourself will do that too when you read through your own stories and you work through them, and you come to an understanding of what's missing, what kind of implications you have too. So that's where I wanted to start off. This first chapter is basically establishing the fact that my main character Ishi is off to war, um, and that he's going to be writing letters to his childhood friend Tomo. Um, the letters themselves are actually going to be hand delivered to Tomo by the demon. They make a pact, the demon and Tomo, that the demon will keep my main character alive in conflict, and in return, the demon will get to sort of like feast off of all of the death around warfare. She gets to sort of experience what it's like to be outside of the forest, and by being linked in with the main character, she'll live through him and sort of feed off of his exposure to death. So it ends with, "Believe it or not, Tomo, I'm writing to you from halfway across the Yellow Sea. What you most likely think I mean by this is that I'm writing the letter to you now. Well, I'm writing the letter now with the intention that, upon arrival in this place in North Korea, I will mail it back to you. In reality, this is what will happen. I will sign my name and let the ink dry. I will fold this golden piece of paper into three and place the sheets inside this purple envelope. Upon the back, I will affix the wax seal, very old-fashioned, and a ribbon security tie. Then, immediately, I will hand this piece of paper to the demon that is sitting opposite my bunk, currently staring out the circular port window, with the glimmer of moonlight dancing across her dear skull. She will take it, and she will take it, vanish into the darkness, and deliver this message direct to you." And then he makes like a promise to get him coffee and cigarettes. I need to, I think I've gone mad. No, I haven't gotten back a coffee request. This needs to be a colon. No, colon. Comma. So I can get rid of replace a comma with a comma. The likes of which is a, it may fit. I need to think on this, and maybe in a couple of edits time I'll get rid of it. I need to get the voice of the character right as well. Hmm. Oh no. 10-second chunks, yikes. Hmm. Alright, well, without further ado, let's get into letter number 3. Now, letter number 2 is a very short one that I addressed on Friday, and it talks about Issue sending a letter back to his wife. And Ishi's wife is like it's a 500-word letter that I guess establishes more about who he is, his relationship with his newborn daughter, who he's having to leave behind, and kind of set the tone for what's coming next. So, um, this is the third letter. He's left home and he's arrived in this port city in northern Korea, which is part of Japan, at this point in time at least. Oh, hey, someone just joined Discord. Hello, Master. Hi. Good to meet you. And if there are any other lurkers who want to join Discord and take Master's lead, then please pop in and say hello. I feel the urge to say this probably regularly, but I really don't like minions, and I'm wearing this shirt ironically, so don't judge me. Please don't judge me. I'm a good human being, okay? So, letter number 3 is I wrote shush you, Sayaka, shush you. Good. So let's dig right into this. I'll just dive right in. So this is sent from June 20. Hi, Master Brazilian guy. Hey, good to meet you. So what we do here on Lyrebird Edits is we usually take in other people's stories and we work through them line by line, paragraph by paragraph, and we just talk about usually how everything flows together, how the writing is working with each other. And today I'm actually doing my own story. I do this very infrequently, but I thought I'd just like to throw it in there and show what my writing is like and how I edit my own writing. I guess it's different if I do it privately, but I just wanted to sort of put this up here. Lee Everett, get back here on Twitch. So yes, welcome to the stream. Bingo, bingo. Yeah, it's so bad it's good. Yeah, exactly. So Sayaka raises a good point, very cheekily. The vernacular. So I talked a little bit about this in the first stream on Friday, but I'll reiterate it here. How do you, in an English sense, talk about a Japanese character writing back to a friend? How do you auto-translate that? What language do you use? And what I'm trying for is to make it not particularly British, but to write in such a way that you capture the essence of what 1930s are like. So some of the turns of phrases, if they're too modern, I need to squash it. And I need to not worry too much about like sprinkling in too many like specific Japanese references. Like there will be times where I do it, like here's a Teru Bozu, but if you do it incorrectly, it comes across as patronizing and a bit sort of trite. So there's always this intuitive balance of how you imitate someone else's style of writing across time and across cultures. It's difficult, but I think you can get it right if you just keep your finger on the pulse of what it sounds like. So with that in mind, let's sort of dive right in. And I guess like we can't be like they won't know aught about iPhones or stuff. Well said. Well said. So we need to keep that in mind. Dear Tomo, I would like to introduce you to two characters that I have a feeling will become quite a fixture in the letters I send to you. However, before we start, I have a matter of practicality to deal with regarding the incredulity you expressed. We've got two regardings here. I have a matter of practicality to deal with. This is... Oops, sorry. Oh, excuse me. I need to turn suggesting on so you can see what I change. This is in regards to the incredulity you expressed at the speed with which my last letter was delivered to you. Please find attached a newspaper clipping from the Keijo Nippo, which is a Japanese language Korean newspaper that was published in North Korea at the time of the Japanese occupation. Yeah. And take note of the data fixed in the top left corner. No, Tomura, I possess neither... thank you. Neither the means, nor the time, nor the patience to manufacture a front page just to play with your perception. If it will put your mind at rest, please contact the local council and request them to send a copy of the publication from Korea back to you. More concerning to me... So, even if you don't know what this means, right? You can guess what this is with... front page, newspaper from Korea. So like after a while, you can bleed together the words you don't understand back through context. I think this is probably the best way to deal with references to cultural elements. Now, this is actually... like, you can't translate that directly into English either. It's the name of the newspaper, so you kind of had to keep it. Whereas Teru Bolzu here may be a different story. Let's deal with that as we come to it. More concerning to me, however, is the fact that you made not a mention of a dear girl, as I've come to affectionately call her. As I've affectionately come to call her. Is there a difference if I move affectionately around? Nah. But maybe it reads a little better. Has your mind been addled... addled so over the years, become so addled over the years by successive drugs of addiction that you find fast transportation incredulous, more so than the presence of a supernatural. Well, you were always the superstitious one, with your army of Teru balls in nonsense to keep the rain away, so you can kind of guess what that means. It's like a charm that keeps the rain away, or pouring out of milk for the cat ghosts who lived on our street, or setting up little candles by the windowsill to keep the Dutch fairies out of your bedroom. One of these things is an actual thing, and the next two are just stupid. So, now I want to deal with this a little more, this section here, and then I'll go through and read a bit more of a chunk. Has your mind become so addled over the years by successive drugs of addiction that you find the speedy delivery of a letter... I'm gonna put timely instead, that sort of minimizes it. Incredulous more so doesn't work, so we need to get rid of that. The timely delivery of a letter, more incredulous than the presence of a supernatural. This reads a lot smoother. Fast transportation, incredulous more so, is it's just a waterfall of overly complicated words. Sure, he's writing a letter, and sure, people who wrote in the past, especially letter writers, were often a lot more eloquent in how they penned their stories. Like, if you read if you read accounts of warfare from soldiers in the trenches and how they write, it's often very paced, very measured, very in some sense quite beautiful, and how straightforward and not evocative it is. So maybe I'm trying to go for that style, but because I'm writing a piece of fiction, I kind of dress it up a little bit. Ah, there you go. Hey, I have one of those hanging in my room. Nice. Very good. Very good. Yeah, we shouldn't be doing that here in Australia because the whole of my state is in drought, so we need rain. Oh, hey, alright, OSG. Hello. How you doing? Welcome back. Lag. It should be okay. I'm on my end, everything is smooth, so smash refresh until the stream comes back up. Good. How you doing, Outrider? We're dealing with my story today. I started editing it on Friday night, and we're on to letter number 3 within the story. Missed the last stream like a turd. No, don't worry about it. You can catch it up on YouTube if you like. But to give you like a little overview, the story follows a soldier in the Japanese army as he travels from home into Korea and beyond. And the story is told in a series of letters that he sends home to his friend, Tomo. And before he goes, he meets a god of death who makes a pact with him that the death god will keep the soldier safe and free of death in return for like harboring or introducing the death god to new experiences of death during warfare. So it's got a bit of supernatural in it, but it's mainly historical fiction with a magic realism coming in like this. So yeah. Yay, nice. Send me some feedback. Give me feedback. But yes, thank you. Hope you've been well. What do you guys make of Thursday versus Friday night for streaming? Do you have a preference? I kind of thought maybe one would be better over the other. I'm not sure. Let me know which you prefer, or if like you have a day that you don't like. For me, it's 50-50, so yeah, let me know. Let me show you what this sentence here looked like before. Has your mind been addled so over the years by successive drugs of addiction that you find fast transportation incredulous more so than the presence of the supernatural? Wow. So this is a sentence that I would definitely, yeah, ruin in editing. It doesn't work. It's too wordy, even for a letter, a composed, measured letter. It's too thick. There's too much going on there. The words don't match. The flow is like treacle. It doesn't go anywhere. Relative to, has your mind become so addled over the years by successive drugs of addiction that you find the timely delivery of a letter more incredulous than the presence of the supernatural? It's still very long, but it flows together a lot more neatly, in my opinion. In another edit 2, 3, 4, I may even cut this down even more, but right now I want to move on. I think that's all you can hope for in a first pass kind of edit. And I will repeat that this hasn't been looked at once since I wrote it. So once what you're seeing is the first phase that I go from draft to first pass edit. Friday is as good as Thursday, but really whichever's more consistent for me to maintain. Yeah, cool. Nice. You do drugs? The story contains a bit of drug use. Not gonna lie. Friday's better because memes. Not untrue. I'll give it some thought today. I'll let you know in the announcements. I may move to Friday, just because it's the end of the week and we can party it up. Yeah, that's the spirit. Bad memories. Anyway, what I'm gonna do is I'll read out a chunk, like down to like here, and I will go back and deal with it. So this is, I would like to introduce 2 characters that I have a feeling will become quite a fixture in the letters that I send to you. However, before we start, I have a matter of practicality that we need to deal with. New paragraph. This is in regards to the incredulity you expressed at the speed with which my letter was delivered to you. I don't even like that. I think that's too wordy. But I'll leave it for now, and in another edit, I'll come back and fix that. So, blah, 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 blah. I hope you're well, dear friend. Now on to business. Under the auspices of the Red Fang Shock Division of the Kwantung Army. Thank you, that's what it was called. Let me Google that, hang on. So, This was the name of the Japanese Imperial Army between April '06 and August 1945. It's the Kwantung Army, and they operated in like, here we go, the Kwantung Army. Um, they were responsible for like heading into the Second World War, but also in Japan's involvement in the foundation of this state here, which is Manchukuo, which was Manchuria occupied by Japan. Not pleasant at all. There's a whole period of war that precedes what we traditionally call World War II in a Western sense, and that's 39 to 45. Before then, there was the Second Sino War of 1937 onwards, which was when Japan and China were in all-out war. And then there's a period before then, in like the 20s and 30s, where Japan was becoming a bit uh, um, hmm, unpleasant, is how I'm going to put that diplomatically. And they were just washing through Korea and China. No one was having fun. So the Kwantung Army. I've got to have oh good, no trouble, Lambert. Thanks for dropping in. We'll catch you next time. Yeah, we'll do output Outrider SG. I'll give you a link over Discord after it's all done. Catch you later, Lambert. Hmm. Yeah, they were real nasty. I don't really know if like it's an apple comparison with the Nazis and the Japanese. The Japanese had a really nasty period of imperialism throughout like the first half of the 20th century, which it spread from Korea into China, Southeast Asia. Um, really sad stuff. But yeah, so the Kwantung Army is not to be confused with the KMT, the the Kuomintang. These guys were Chinese nationalists. Were fighting against Chinese communists at the time. So as Japan was coming up into Manchuria, internally in China, they were having an internal battle about communism versus nationalism, and they had their own warfare going on there, and the Japanese were just eating away at the territory in the top right. No one was having fun. Everyone was having a sad time. That's what they want you to think, Sayaka. Yeah, they're proper docile now. It's really interesting about how nationalism can influence and affect a country, and I think Japan's a good example of that. Um, the army and the navy became just rabid and really kind of cancerous almost. They would launch attacks on countries without notifying like the central government. I believe the invasion of Hong Kong from Japan wasn't even ordered. The army just did it, and then they reported back to Tokyo after they'd controlled Hong Kong. It's like, oh hey, we have Hong Kong now. That's what I believe happened, and there were just weird things like that. There's an argument about Pearl Harbor being like that as well. So, yeah. Hmm. That's interesting. I didn't know that actually. Um, I didn't know that they may have seen it coming. So it's like a sort of reverse false flag. Yeah, isn't that weird? Let's head back into the story. So the Kwantung Army. So under the auspices of the Red Fang Shock Division of the Kwantung Army, the Lieutenant Colonel instructed me to make contact with two espionage agents. The first I managed to track down in a brothel. From the outside, it's a building like any other along the wharf front. Low lit, wooden slit. A good quality sign over the front door that simply reads Outpost. Maybe if I stood still, I could convince myself of the raucous internal nature of this building before I set foot inside. Indeed, my suspicions were confirmed, as a little bundle of gangly boys, not shy of 20 I'd say, with their arms slung around each other, drunk as hell, or all hell, staggered forth from the lip. They eyed me with great suspicion, perhaps mistaking me for a superior. I made off at great pace, still laughing, still playing with each other, so I stepped inside the brothel. I'm gonna highlight that and come back to it. A sort of peachy fuzz darkness grew over the walls and ceiling like moss. It was a little like the speakeasy that used to operate near Dejima in our city. Some quiet tucked away place where the faces are cast in shadow and the men and women throng about. A bar was set up on the entry level, one populated with the bodies of young men slouched over in blackout drunk stupor. Someone was playing a jaunty Euro tune on the accordion. Koreans served drinks and entertained the men. Too flat and British for my taste, but to each their own. I found the maitre d', a plump woman with dark clouds beneath her eyes, and asked if she knew anyone by the name of Kajima. Yes, like the tree. If you spell that out with characters, you can get like a tree. Anyway, the woman gave so like this, for instance, I don't know if I can justify. So I'm gonna highlight that in purple. The woman gave me a look up and down and decided to tell me instantly which floor and room he occupied. Maybe she thought I was someone special. I am in no way special. I stand up straight, I do not smile, and people mistake this for authority. Useful sometimes, no? Don't laugh at me, Tomo. I'm called Ishi for a reason, and my famous stony nature needs to come from somewhere, if not for the complete opposite of how I behave. Ascending a velvet staircase upon the second floor, on the third room from the rear, I knocked. A moment of quiet as I looked up and down the landing, mistaking myself for somewhere luxuriant. I'm gonna get rid of mistaking, but highlight it. From inside, I heard a voice roar back with a drunk kind of stagger. Away with you. So naturally, I let myself in. Yep. Good. Throw that advice back at me. No, I agree. Demonstrate. Demonstratra. Oh, demonstrate. I think even within the context of a letter, it's important to still try and demonstrate things as well. So you can sprinkle in block descriptions of what's going on, but I think, as Writer SG said, it's probably something that you can actually write out and demonstrate within a story. Because this is a letter talking about a past event, it may be more permissible for me to get away with doing this, but does it make it stronger? And that's entirely dependent, I think, on what kind of image you're trying to evoke. So I think I agree with Outrider SG. This is too flat, and too flat. This is too it's not evocative enough, and I think I can make it more rounded. Yep. So as Outrider SG says, I just saw a few tells in a row, and the drink serving seemed like a good point for an observation at the moment. That's a really good suggestion. Yeah. And I agree completely. Especially because we've got the tell, time for a show. Yeah. Even in the context of a letter. I'm going to read this paragraph and then go back up. My first impression of Kajiman was of a naked man wrapped in the arms of 3 sex slaves. Korean girls of no more than 16 apiece, naked as a swan sky, draped like lavish ornaments upon the body of this one particular soldier that greeted me with a scowl and a deep furrowing of his brow. It's a thick sentence. I'm going to come back to this one. Excuse the intrusion, I murmured, closing the door softly behind me to keep the opium smoke from leaking out into the real world. I turned back upon the scene and wondered vaguely how long the man had been here for. Here was my guess. Because the girl seemed rather cogent and Kajima rather not, it would be safe to say that the man had been here for a considerable stretch of time while the girls were fresh rotated. Otherwise, the Korean bitches were so used to the fug of drug fumes that they cared not. I can't tell, honestly. Their faces don't register much beyond a default state of disgust. Are these the ones that we pay to fuck for soldiers? Or are they the ones we don't talk about? Okay, so here's me stepping on lots of toes. There's a lot of history here that I've just sprinkled in, and a lot of racism I've just sprinkled in as well. This is a nasty paragraph, and but I think from the context, from the date, from the dehumanization of the Korean sex slaves, and there were lots of sex slaves during this time. Um, they were called comfort women. There's a horrible history around this, so it's awful, and I want to make sure I get this right. So we need to talk about this right after we come back up and talk about this. Thank you, Outrider SG. I'm worried sometimes that when I write about these sorts of things, like the horrible history lesson of that, I think horrible histories would have a really difficult time talking about this period of history. Um, I don't know why, but like British history is comical in how graphically horrible it is, but I think like this horrible history is just horrible. So yeah, history is just horrible at any period. Yeah, I think you're right about that. What I wanted to avoid here is I want to talk about this in a second called reinflection versus reflection versus reinforcement. I'm going to make a comment there and come back to it right after I do this. Guys, do you mind bearing with me for just 1 second while I go and get a glass of water? Yeah, it's amazing fact of the day, right? Sometimes humans do really shitty things. Hmm. Yes, yeah, it's pretty horrible. Let me go get a glass of water. Back soon. Alrighty, hi. So, yeah, stream's been up since 9. A few people have said that the notification system's been a bit strange recently. I think TTLICC mentioned that once. Hmm. I don't know what it's like to get a notification for streaming because I don't really watch too many other streams. Um, no, actually, I'm subscribed to people. Do I get messages? I don't know. Maybe I'm just bad at checking my emails, or maybe Google auto sorts it somewhere else. Let's talk about the brothel. Um, from the outside, it's a building like any other along the wharf front. Low-lit wooden slit with a good quality sign over the front door. It simply reads Outpost. Now, here I think I wanted to try and give an impression of the complete opposite of what I said. Maybe if I stood still, I could convince myself of the raucous internal nature of this building before I sat inside. Okay, so no. Um, sorry, past me, but we need to fix this. And get rid of the highlight. So maybe if I stood still, I can convince myself that. I'm gonna get rid of the maybe if I stood still and just put if I stood still. Um, oh no, maybe if I stood still, I could convince myself that this is the impression I wanted to give, but it came out wrong when I wrote it. Maybe if I stood still, I could convince myself that this establishment was nothing more than a records office. That sort of boring flavour. The kind of place you glance at once and then never again. And then instead, I watched as a bundle of gangly boys, not shy of 20, I'd say. Stagger from the lip of the place. That needs to come earlier. Stagger fourth. No, stagger from. I guess it'll have doors rather than just an open archway. I'll stagger from within, with their arms slung around each other, drunk as all hell. Full stop. Now I think that's a lot stronger that way. What I did here was just completely change around the inflection of the place, and instead gave it like a boring exterior but with an interior that is now going to be contrasting the outside. Yeah, right. Now, good point. Instead I watched as blah blah blah. I watched as a little bit staggered. Thank you. Yep, good. Nice one. I thought I could mix up my tenses there, but not this time. Nice spotting. Thank you. The photo stream threw me off a bit, and yeah, I think I was a bit out of sorts too. With just in terms of like yesterday, I was like, oh, I streamed yesterday, but I'm doing it again tomorrow. That's yeah, normally I check the clock every 10 minutes on Thursdays and Thursdays when I stream too. Hmm. That's with my. Are you talking about the like the countdown timer that I have on my dashboard? That's a useful thing actually, that countdown timer. Hmm. Okay, you're just sitting there waiting every 10 minutes, just checking again. Good. That's the correct response. That's what you should be doing. I watched as a little bundle of gangly boys, not shy of 20, I'd say. Watched as a little bundle of gangly boys staggered from within. Now, I don't know if the age is necessary because that interjection really makes the flow of a sentence not so enjoyable. Instead, I watched as a little bundle of gangly boys staggered from within, with their arms slung around each other, drunk as all hell. I think that's a more appropriate sentence. They eyed me with great suspicion, perhaps mistaking me for a superior, and made off at a great pace. So this needs to be M-dashed here. Not the R. I made off a great pace, still staggering. Sorry, still laughing implies they were before. Laughing once more. Jostling with each other, I guess. So I stepped into the brothel. Wrestling. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I think you're right. Thank you. Wrestling is more neutral. Jostling may have a bit more of an Australian connotation to it. Probably good to remove, seeing as this is um, trying to be as neutral as possible in terms of like the English language usage. Hmm. A sort of peachy fuzz darkness grew on the walls and ceiling like moss. Gonna get rid of a sort of, and maybe just put or peachy fuzzy darkness. I don't know. Does that work? I don't know. Let's give it a try. Peachy fuzzy darkness grew on the walls and ceiling like moss. Yeah, okay. It was a little like the speakeasy. Now I don't know if they call it a speakeasy or if that's particularly. Why did I just get really? That's a nice lighting effect, but why? Did the sun just vanish from the window? Yeah, maybe it did. Okay. Hey, Lyrebird edits, just with the lovely dramatic lighting on my face. It's quite nice, actually. Um, did that happen at exactly the same time as Peachy Fuzzy Darkness? That wasn't. This isn't intentional. I swear, that's not some sort of cheap trick I'm trying to play. Um, Peachy Fuzzy Adverbia, Adverbia Nirvana. Isn't that weird? Yeah. Do you like Peachy Fuzzy? Outrider SG? That's not. I don't know what I'm. But yeah, do you reckon this works, or do you reckon I should get rid of it? Oh, bye bye, Peachy Fuzzy Darkness. Cool. Good in this case. Thank you. It was a little like the speakeasy that used to operate near Dejima in our city. Now, it doesn't need to be in our city because Dejima should be uh some whoops some quiet, comma tucked away place where the faces of men are cast in shadows. I'm gonna get rid of that. A bar was set up on entry level. I'm gonna say entry level was occupied by, make it passive. Because I can, and because this is a letter, so you can afford to be passive sometimes in letters. Is the justification for my lazy writing. But also, I have to tailor it with this sentence too. Here, now referring to the present, entry level was occupied by a bar one populated with the bodies of young men slouched over in blackout drunk stupor. Someone was playing a jaunty Euro tune on the accordion. Korean served drinks and entertained the men. I'm going to replace with this. Demonstrate, don't just relay. Thank you, Lyrebird edits / Outrider SG. So, what would they be wearing? I don't know if I can pull off that conceptual kind of thing. As I made my way through the dark mess, a little troop of Koreans draped in a sad attempt at the enticing passed me by. Hmm. Yeah, interesting point there, Rider SG. Let's see. I'm my way through the dark mess. As I'm my way through the dark mess. A little I'm way through the dark. Comma. And a little troop of Koreans draped in a sad and the enticing passed me by. Drinks bounced on platters, eyes low away from me. That's a lot more demonstrative, I think, of what I was going for before. It still tells you the detail, but I mean, in some ways, it's sort of verging more onto showing. So, yep, good suggestion. I think that works a lot better. Cut the sentence in half. Just start it with a little troop. I reckon that's certainly better than what I had before, but is it as it's as effective, but can it be more effective? I made my way through the dark mess, a little troop of Koreans draped in a sad attempt to the enticing passed me by. Drinks bounced on platters, eyes low away from me. Too flat and brutish for my taste, but to each their own. I think that gets the point across. I found the maitre d', a plump woman with dark clouds beneath her eyes. I soon found the maitre d' behind the bar. Here stood a plump woman with dark clouds behind her eyes. Much better. Yay, thank you. I'm conscious of the fact that I don't want to talk too much about dialogue rather than showing dialogue. So first she asked me what I was after. I'm surprised to find out I wasn't here for the usual. Instead, I asked if she knew anyone by the name of Kajima. Yes, like the tree. No one is going to understand what I mean if I talk about that, so let's get rid of it. Sometimes when I'm reading stories and people throw in very obscure references to cultural things, it just it doesn't fit. And me as a reader, I'm reading it and I'm like, I don't get it. It's like when people use like um this happens more in older books, but sometimes they dip into French and I'd be like, oh no, I don't speak French. So beyond like asking for coffee. So sometimes you have to really, I don't know, be mindful of what is and isn't good for your reader to know. Like, it doesn't even matter like how clever or fancy I am with this like this Chinese character reference. It doesn't matter. So I'm gonna get rid of it. Holy shit, that's amazing! Wow. But that's what's missing from this. Definitely. It's a bit lifeless, don't you think? It doesn't have enough. Oh, peachy fuzz again. It doesn't have enough peachy fuzz to it. Whereas something like this just it instantly brightens up the story. So I'm honestly very tempted to steal that and put it in. So I'm going to get rid of here stood a plump woman with dark clouds beneath her eyes. I'll tell you now, Tomo, the woman was as plump as a potato with bruises to match. Like, holy crap, you can't get any better than that. So, with permission, I would like to steal this from Outrider SG and place it within my story. And without waiting for a yes or no, I'm going to do that. Steal away. Beautiful. Oh. But I think this isn't... I think this is intuitive as to why it's better in every way. It does really three things that the other sentence didn't. First of all, it refers back to Tomo, which I haven't done for a little while. Here I do, but like it's good. Once a paragraph is maybe too much in some sense, but I don't do it for now for a little while. Um, the woman was as plump as a tomato with bruises to match. It's evocative and it's characterful, whereas the other one wasn't, with dark clouds beneath her eyes. Okay, sure, whatever. Plump as a tomato is the same as this, right? In a sense, it's just a description. With bruises to match, like, that gives you a sense of character, which then makes me want to follow up with something like, um, so with bruises to match. Something like that is what I want to imply thereafter. So I'm going to put that into a... The implication here is that she gets into fights, but I want to push it a little further and be like, she's tough as nails, sort of thing. So I want to then think about how to say, I hate to see the state of whoever she'd sparred with. Like, you should see the other guy, that sort of thing. But you can't use that modernism, you have to make it a little different. First, she asked me what I was after, and was surprised to find out I wasn't here for the usual. No, what I'm going to do instead is actually make this dialogue. That's implied by the grammar, though. It wasn't so much a... as if there were options. Mm. How's the progress? Progressing. At Rider SG gave some really good suggestions here. More so about... We got rid of what was originally here, which was Korean serve drinks and entertain the men. Instead, we put in, I made my way through the dark mess. A little troop of Koreans draped in a sad attempt at the enticing passed me by. Drinks balanced on platters, eyes low away from me. I think that's a lot more evocative and descriptive. And then we've gotten rid of something that I had here before about just like, he goes to the maitre d' and then immediately goes away from her. Now, Outrider SG have this really nice suggestion here, which I've put into the story. I soon found the maitre d' behind the bar. I'll tell you now, Tomo, the woman was as plump as a tomato with bruises to match. I want to extend this further, but I'll do that in another edit. But this is perfect, and it did something that my writing didn't do before. Mookie MC, you were here for letters 1 and 2, weren't you? I picked up where I left off from the last edit. He certainly is a smart guy. He's got some really good suggestions. And it's also good to have, like, just other people experiencing this piece of writing for the first time, too. Because their understanding of it is fresh. I missed the start of letter 3. You haven't missed much. He's arrived in the port city, spends a bit of while berating his friend for not believing the fact that he's delivering letters so quickly, and now he's walking into a brothel, as you do. So what are you here for then? As if there were options and not simply a singular reason for being inside a brothel. Stepping foot. I let her ask his sarcasm stew for a moment, and replied, "Where is Kajima?" The woman gave me a look up and down. I decided, well... The woman gave me a look, and decided to tell me, The woman gave me a look and... spluttered out, spontaneous confession. That's what I'm going for here, but I want to demonstrate it through body language. So the woman gave me a look. The woman gave me a look, eyes faltering, shoulders slumping just a fraction. A moment later, I knew which floor and room he occupied. Kajima occupied. I'm going to repeat his name. Maybe she thought I was someone special. Easy as that. Maybe she thought I was someone special. I'm in no way special. I stand up straight, I do not smile, and people mistake this for authority. Useful sometimes, no? Don't laugh at me, Tomo. I'm called Ishi for a reason. It means stone. So, like, I can be a bit more playful if you can guess what it means. Famously stony. But with the Kajima thing before, it doesn't work. So, I'm called Ishi for a reason, and my famously stony nature needs to come from somewhere, if not the complete opposite of how I behave sometimes. So, gonna get rid of that. Ascending a velvet staircase, upon the second floor, on the third room from the rear, I knocked. A moment of quiet as I looked up and down the landing, mistaking myself for somewhere luxuriant. Had to see nephew off. No worries. All good. Just going through this little chunk here. I wanted to expand out a little more of this section, mistaking myself for somewhere luxuriant. I wondered, how long ago was this place a storehouse? How quickly can one transform a dark place into a darker place? We're inside. From inside, I heard a voice. Nope, a voice roared back. Personify the voice. Roared back with a drunk kind of stagger. Away with you. So naturally, I let myself in. My first impression. So here, okay, this paragraph here is tricky because I need to talk about what I was hinting at before. It's brutal. It's very deeply steeped in racism, and it's not pleasant to read. So when you're dealing with this kind of thing in a historical sense, or even in a present sense, I think it's important to consider something called reflection versus reinforcement. Now, your readers are smart people, and they will pick up very quickly and very intuitively on whether or not your choice of words fit the style, and are shocking for a reason, so to speak. If it's obvious that this is typical of what people used to think and is not a good thing, it will come out of a natural flow of the writing. And because it's told in the first person as well, it needs to be authentic to what this character is thinking and what he's embodying in. What sort of views he embodies, so to speak. So this idea of reflection versus reinforcement is this a reflection of people's attitudes, or is it actually reinforcing in a modern sense that this is a good thing to do? Very rarely will you ever need to reinforce. It's probably good to try and be reflective. It's hardest with first person, but again, in the same way that you have to keep your finger on the pulse of the language that's being used in a authentic sense, you also have to do the same thing for how people behaved. My first impression of Kajima was of a naked man wrapped in the arms of 3 sex slaves. Korean girls of no more than 16 apiece, naked as the swan sky, draped like lavish ornaments upon the body of this one particular soldier. They greeted me with a scowl and deep furrowing of his brow. Nope, too long. So, Korean girls of no more than 16 apiece, naked as the swan sky, draped like lavish ornaments across his body. Full stop. The man greeted me. Okay, that's so much better. It's just, yeah, you can't have these blah 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 sentences. You need to be very cutting sometimes in how long you choose your sentences to be. Yeah. Is that good? I didn't know whether or not this would stick. Where like whorehouse, storehouse, darker that's exactly what I was going for, and I didn't know if it was going to be gimmicky. So cool. I'm glad you like it. I liked it too. I threw it in, and I'm like, oh, I'll deal with it later if it's bad or not. But yeah, good. Maybe you can work a reference to reiterate the time period in the opener. How would I? Let's see. Like every letter is dated, um, with a specific date. This is important, and the year is too. But the other way I could do it would be to refer to specific technologies as well. So when he goes inside the um, where was I? Someone was playing a jaunty Euro tune on the accordion. Don't know the name. I guess it'd either be European or German is what they'd be listening to. Probably Italian. Because Japan wasn't... They didn't have the alliance with Germany at this point in time. But neither did they have the alliance with Italy. Nevertheless, they were trying to forge relations with those countries. So I guess, like, there'd be Italians there maybe as spies. I don't know. It's kind of like that scene from The Wind Rises where you have that German spy in the Japanese hotel, actually, yeah. Ah, yeah, interesting. I know what impression you're trying to give. Let's go through the paragraph and see if that works. If we can fit that in somewhere. The man greeted me with a scowl and deep furrowing of his brow. Excuse the intrusion, I murmured, closing the door softly behind me to keep the opium smoke from leaking out into the real world. I back-ended the dialogue tag here because I think that I want this to be the main focus of the sentence, and this comes sort of... It explains everything and then it moves on. So, if I reversed it, closing the door softly behind me to keep the opium smoke from leaking out into the real world, comma, I murmured, comma, excuse the intrusion, doesn't work. So, this is probably a good case of back-ending the dialogue tag. Let's keep that in mind. I agree, we need to sprinkle in a bit of something. I turned back upon the scene and wondered vaguely how long the man had been here for. Here was my guess. Because the girls seemed rather cogent, and Kajima rather not, it would be safe to say that the man had been here for a considerable stretch of time, while the girls were fresh rotated. Barring that, or alternatively, these Korean bitches were so used to the thug of drug fumes that they cared not. I couldn't tell, honestly. Their faces don't register much beyond a default state of disgust. Are these ones that we pay to fuck with soldiers, or are these ones that we don't talk about? Um... Hmm... How about this? Spores of War, I suppose. This isn't as direct as what you were suggesting here, but it kind of grounds this in a context that maybe is a bit unusual. Hey, thank you. It's a bit more subtle, I guess, than being like, red flag, red flag. By the way, this is not appropriate behavior. Like, we know it's not appropriate behavior, but like, Ishii doesn't really care that much because he's already desensitized to the dehumanization of people. Um, I'd agree with you, except they're not technically in war. So, Spores of War is a bit more general. Spores of War, I suppose, even if the war doesn't exist yet. Maybe it's a bit overblown. I'll leave it there and come back to it later. I like those last two lines so much. Thank you. Yeah, they're pretty awful, aren't they? But I think I think it kind of sums up everything really really neatly. Are these the ones that we pay to fuck with soldiers, or are these the ones we don't talk about? Kajima makes some half-hearted effort to rise to his feet, but instead of doing the honorable thing and rising to the occasion, he swings his legs over the edge of the bed, letting his genitals hang free, letting the girls reposition on either side of him. Cleary, he Slurs. What do you want? A rather strange introduction to the man who helped assassinate Jiang Zulin back in 1928, through Manchuria, of course, and into our country's orbit. So this actually happened. He was a warlord. I think he controlled Manchuria, and the Japanese assassinated him because they wanted to create a power vacuum into which the Japanese could kind of start to move into Manchuria. Good with explosives, apparently. Good enough to blow up train tracks and get rid of powerful warlords. So he'd already had experience with blowing up a train track. That's important for later. Let's let's read on. In letter 4, they do this. They blow up a train track. So yeah. Hmm. Which paragraph was that actually? Sorry, Writer SG. What were you referring to there? Ah, the one with the racism. Cool. Yep. I think so too. Yeah, that's right. No, I agree too. It's all about being consistent in how you refer back to things in terms of the impression that you give. So, without even realizing it, yeah, I think that kind of doubles down on it too, doesn't it? Or rather, by establishing the date, yeah. That was enough for my purposes. I extended my hand and did the proper thing. Ishi. His eyes became wide. Man straightened, stood, and discarded the arms of his consorts, performing a little bow in my honor. Apparently, I have a name for myself already. Evidently, I have a name for myself already. Became wide, I want to get rid of. Um, I don't want to say owling. That's a bit weird. His eyes turned to whites. Yeah, I made a name. Yep. Thank you. That's the expression. I made a name for myself already. Now, there's a lot of very broken paragraphs here. I want to fix that. So I've got rid of one here. Um, hmm. Kajima is to serve as my knife then. Ashitaka is to serve as my brain, a more polar opposite man you could not find. So I guess it kind of serves as its own little sort of... This first character here is dealt with, because I remember saying, I would like to introduce you to two characters. So down here, we've got... This is the end of the first, lock into the second. I guess that's okay. Let's push forward. I don't want to say polar opposite. A man more different man you would have trouble finding. Hmm. So are you doing a thing where the writer is controversial and it makes his tenses like... Yeah, I think what I'm trying to do is to make these letters directed towards his childhood friend. So he's relaying events in a way that is trying to be conversational but also somewhat factual. The present tense versus past tense stuff I think is maybe Ishii just writing out his experiences as though he's reliving them. Um, strictly speaking, that's sort of called the historical present, but you can kind of be a bit lucid with tenses in letters like this. Um, so if Kashmir is to serve as my knife, then it implies like a sort of future event, doesn't it? Cool, yeah. But it's good to keep that in mind too, because if it comes across to you as odd that I'm switching, sometimes it doesn't work, and I shouldn't do it, so let me know. Later that afternoon, on a tip-off from a local working for the Keijo printing press, which we addressed before, I set off in search for my second team member who, I was told, was conducting some sort of class. Imagine my surprise as I found this particular class not all that far from the port, along a pathway that ran rings around the warfare architecture of the hamlet. Upon a hill, I could see about 10 of them from a short distance. They sat behind little patches of wood. Drawing closer, I recognized them as easels. 10 women sat painting upon the hillside. Each wore a frock, but underneath I noticed the slight trappings of wealth, lace, pristine cuts, hair that shimmered with little flecks of bejeweled combs, like the sparkling sea under the cutting light of a moon. As I approached, they all stood to their feet and gave curt little bows before returning to their duty. I turned and inspected their visage. Yes, a rather fine port, I must admit, from that viewpoint, with the wind cutting snakes through the reeds that sloped down into the water the colour of the sky. Into the water the colour of sky. I found Ashitaka at the end of the row of women, bent over and hidden by an easel. Using his hand, he guided the paintbrush of his student across the canvas. Watch them. I could tell from the way that both of their eyes matched the intense glow of the brush that both of them were lost in total focus. So imagine my surprise as, without breaking one ounce of concentration, now I've used surprise twice, haven't I? I think I've used surprise twice. Let me come back and find that later. As, without breaking 1 ounce of concentration, the painter addressed me, speaking soft to the flow of the brush. I've used brush too many times. If I get you to stand just over there, beside the brush, or beside the bush, perhaps we could paint you into the scene. If I get you to stand over there, beside the bush, perhaps we could paint you into the scene. There would be worse ways to be remembered. I gave him a little smile and walked on. The man joined me a moment later, wiping a bit of paint across his apron, and we walked along the hillside, away from the women. Ashitaka said to me with his voice, with his clear, even voice, I never imagined I'd been winning hearts and minds by teaching the aristocracy how to paint. You have an eye, perhaps this is your true calling. Ashitaka wipes the compliment away with a chuckle and settles on, No, I have a feeling that my true calling is something nebulous and vain that you're about to spin for me. An operations expert. Ah. We stop and take in the view of the port hamlet. Deep in the distance, I think I see a warship, some lumbering slug of technology and chimneys vomiting charcoal into the clear blue. The man gives a deep sigh and offers, I can't refuse now, can I? I have no authority over you, but the Colonel considers his offering a most noble use of your skills. Well, they do say you win a war with hearts and minds. Trouble is, I see no war. I only see a country in need of constant pacification, like a colicky baby. These women, he motions back to the ladies, are just not. These women are the key to keeping the Korean men, those with military power, from rising up and overthrowing our control over them. So that needs to be comma for a breakaway. This is just a small grammatical thing. And then I can then put the M dashes here. I nod and reply, I believe things are about to get much worse. Ashitaka raises his eyebrows. War? If we have our way, yes. The government has approved no such action. So they say, and I smile. Ashitaka smiles. His eyes pull back over the natural splendor for a moment, and he says to no one in particular, Well then, for the glory of Japan, I suppose. That night, the three of us met in the back offices of the Keijo outlet. Ashitaka, Kajima, Ishii. The Red Fang, I suppose. In a room full of shadows, with men I did not recognize, high on a deadly mixture of umeshu and cigarettes, this is like just an alcohol, we began our planning. We began to plot. Okay, good. Let's go back and work with this. And that's the end of the letter. That's what was bothering it. A more different pair of men you would have trouble finding. That makes more sense. Lady of afternoon. Um, Not a tip-off because he's not in hiding. On direction. Hmm. That's interesting. It's sort of animalistic too. I like that. Yes. Good. Um, studs sounds a bit weird, doesn't it? Like we need something that's a bit less um something that dehumanizes them a bit more. So these women are the key to keeping these Korean like pigs, for instance. But I'm sure I can look up a racial slur and plop it in. Um, Dog or pig could work. Yeah, it keeps in the theme of devaluing them. Hmm. And I don't really want to use bitches because I don't think Ashitaka is that crass. I think he's a bit more sort of refined. Um, yeah, let's highlight that and we'll come back to it. Highlight it in that one. That one. Yeah. We need like something that's not as crass as bitches and dogs or pigs, and something that's not as beautiful as stallions and mares and studs. We'll think on it. On direction from a local, from an editor, looking for the Keijo. Press. I set off in search for my second team member, who, I was told, was conducting some sort of class. Imagine my surprise, there's the surprise there, as I found this particular class not all that far from the port and along a pathway that ran rings around the warfare architecture of the hamlet. Upon the hill, if I stopped and turned around upon that hill, I don't know whether I should leave the view until the end. I kind of like that, but um, hmm. Further up the hillside, I caught my first glimpse of the class. Now I've used class 3 times though, so we've got class, class. Imagine my surprise as I found this particular... I'm not sure what to put there actually. I was conducting some sort of class. I don't mind the repetition of class there, so so in that case, I may just do them. Yeah, seminar might be appropriate. Tutorial? Tutorial then class, yeah. Over up the hillside, I caught my first glimpse of them, about 10... in total. Each sat behind little patches of wood. Drawing closer, I recognized them as easels. 10 women sat painting upon the hillside. Each wore a frock, but underneath I noticed the slight trappings of wealth. Lace, pristine cuts, hair that shimmered with little flecks of jeweled combs. I don't want to say bejeweled, just jeweled combs. Like the sparkling sea under the cutting light of a moon. I'm gonna give it a cutting. Like the sparkling sea under the light of a moon. As I approached, they all rose to their feet. They gave little curt bows before returning to their duty. Rather impressive, I must say. I turned and inspected their visage. Yes, a rather fine port, I must admit. I must admit. Might get rid of it, I must say. A-D... M-I-T. Didn't see that before. I turned and inspected their visage. Yes, a rather fine port, I must admit, from that viewpoint, with the wind cutting snakes through the reeds that sloped down into water the colour of sky. I think I'll stick with tutorial, that might make it work better. I turned and inspected their visage. Yes, a rather fine port, I must admit. From that viewpoint. I gotta get rid of from that viewpoint. With the wind cutting snakes through tall reeds that slope down into water the colour of sky. I think that's better. I found Ashitaka at the end of the row of women, bent over and hidden behind an easel. Using his hand, he guided the paintbrush of his student across the canvas. I watched them together. I could tell from the way that both of their eyes matched. Nope, so... Both. Both of their eyes matched the intense flow of the brush. Full stop. Total focus. Imagine my surprise, which I used already. Nope, so just... Blip. But, without breaking 1 ounce of concentration, the instructor addressed me, speaking soft to the flow of the brush. Now I've only used brush... paintbrush, brush... I'm gonna put paint there instead. Intense flow of paint. Total focus. But each was lost in total focus, or that, lol. Yeah, either way I think that's good. But without breaking 1 ounce of concentration, the instructor addresses me, speaking soft to the flow of the brush. I think it's okay to use present tense. If I get you to stand over there... If I get you to stand right over there... If I get you to stand just over there, beside the bushes, perhaps we can paint you into this If I get you to stand just over there beside the bushes, perhaps we could paint you into the scene. There'll be worse ways to be remembered. Which I guess is a bit of a throw into the future. I gave him a little smile and walked on. The man joined me a moment later, wiping a bit of paint across his apron. And we strode on. Walked on. Continued on, thank you, yeah. Thank you, that's good. And we continued along the hillside, away from the women. Ashtaka said to me with his clear, even voice, I never imagined I'd be winning hearts and minds by teaching the aristocracy how to paint. You have an eye for it. Perhaps painting is your true calling. Ashtaka wipes the compliment away with a chuckle and settles on, no, I have a feeling that my true calling is something nebulous and vain. Something that you're about to spin for me. An operations expert. Ah. We stop and take in the view of the port hamlet. Deep in the distance, I think I see a warship, some lumbering slug of technology and chimneys vomiting charcoal into the clear blue. Now, this is all present tense, but it's present historical, so we know that the whole thing's happening in the past, yet you're telling it as though it's present. That's a valid way to work with the story. You just have to be reminiscent of the fact that you're telling a story in the past tense. The man gives a deep sigh and offers... Now, I haven't described his face yet, so... There we go. That makes lines of trouble sprout over his brow. He offers, I can't refuse now, can I? You worried, saying we stopped and took... We'd fix it without getting rid of the present. And the rest, we... Correct. Good suggestion. Now, here, that then mixes up tenses. We stopped and took in the view of the port hamlet. Deep in the distance, I think I see a warship, some lumbering slug of technology and chimneys vomiting charcoal into the clear blue. This is a bit more contradictory then in terms of its present-past mixture, but I don't think that matters too much. Because it's all in the past. It kind of doesn't matter what tense you use. So to prove that, you can just whack this in. It doesn't look as... I don't think it looks as neat. But as Outrider SG suggests, it does ground the fact that you're talking about a past event. I may actually undo that. We stop and take in the view of the port hamlet. Because Hero got said to me, wipes away, we stop. So it's kind of been grounded here, I think. It can be timeless. Hopefully, either way, that impression is given with this too. Let's push on for a bit. Cool. I have no authority over you, but the Colonel considers this offering a most noble use of your skills. Well, I do say you win a war with hearts and minds. Now, he's already used this expression before. Winning hearts and minds by teaching aristocracy. This is a particularly American thing to say, the hearts and minds approach. But it's now like part of modern lexicon, so... I think it's okay here, but maybe here I can change it. I need to give a different impression too. I'm not sure. That's better. Well, I'm not sure we can win a war with oil pencil, and now can we? Trouble is, I see no war. I only see a country in need of constant pacification like a colicky baby. These women, he motions back to the ladies. I jest you not. These women are the key to keeping the Korean men, those with military power, from rising up and overthrowing our control over them. I nod in reply. I believe things are about to get much worse. Stryker raises his eyebrows. War, if we have our way, yes, the government has approved no such action, so they say. Now, we'll have to think about what to replace women and men here with. Mob, yeah. I'll have to think about this over the next few days. There's a better way to do this, and I think it's a bit jittery at the moment. I just not. I'm gonna get rid of that. These are these. Yep. And I smile. Ashitaka smiles. His eyes fall back over the natural splendor for a moment. He says to no one in particular, well then, for the glory of Japan, I suppose. That night the three of us met in the back offices of the Keijo outlet. So, Ashitaka Kajima Ishii, the red thing, I suppose, in a room full of shadows, with men I did not recognize, high on a deadly mixture of meshu and cigarettes, we began to plot. The war that was yet to exist. Now, in all of this, I've not mentioned once, well, except here. I mentioned the death of the god death. I mentioned the dear girl with the skull here, and never again. I think that's intentional, because in this letter I want it to be more realistic. We haven't had except for letter 2, which was more of a sort of love letter to his wife. This is more of a realistic approach, and then the god of death will eventually start to work her tendrils into the story. Cool. This ending paragraph here, is that what you're talking about? I wanted to add in a bit more of an image about where they are. I like it a lot better too, just with a little addition here, some self-reflexive, self-effacing stuff, and to plot the war that was yet to exist is, I think, a very strong way to end the letter. Bam, there it is. Hey, thank you. I'm a bit harder on myself. I think it was like before, and now it's like decent to strong at the end. I think it gets better as it goes along this end paragraph. I'm sure I can make it better with subsequent edits. We're done. We are all done. I'll work these edits into the document. I'll make it a bit smoother, and I might put a link to them over Discord, and then you guys can have a look and make your own suggestions. But yeah, thanks Outrider for your really good, really on-point suggestions here today. I feel like I'm a lot more confident with this story and where it's going, and how the events of the story are told too. Really, thank you for brightening up this section here as well with Ishii walking into the brothel. I think that was a very weak section of this story before, and now it's elevated up. Yes, good. I'll put up letter number 1 as well. I'd love to know what you think of that one. Great. Thank you. And thank you for everyone else who joined today, for your excellent presence. No, it's good to have people here to their points of view and just saying hi. Thank you guys. Thank you. Next stream will be, I guess, Thursday or Friday. I'll let you know over Discord which one that will be. Yeah, Yes, Sayaka, it was excellent. Always excellent having you here. Always. Don't put yourself down. I'll give real feedback the day you respect me. I respect you, Sayaka, and your feedback is always welcome. Ooh. Hmm. I'm tempted, actually, to show you more. Yeah, okay. Hmm. Not with that shirt, you damn liar. Ryder, have you noticed my shirt? Did you take a look at what I'm wearing? Would you like me to show you? But yeah, I'll consider putting up letter number 4 for the next stream. Oh god, I had not. Hang on, I'll move a bit closer. Yeah, it'll make me want to write more. Definitely. Here's my shirt. It's awful, but I love it. It's beach themed minions. What could be fresher than this shirt? Nothing. So how many letters do I have? I've got 1, 2. This is the third one. 4, 5, 6, 7. 5, 6, 7, 8. 9 letters. The ninth one needs a lot of work. Yeah. We'll push forward. Hmm. All of your hope is stream. Gone. Wasted. Not appropriate. Well. No, definitely not. You don't need to appreciate the Ningen shirt to have valuable contributions. Yeah, it's no funny. It's just one of those things like you don't consciously pick up on. Mingen jammies. These aren't pajamas, okay? This is a shirt that you can wear out in public. Although now that you say that, my girlfriend bought a large version of this and she's using it as like a long sleeve shirt. So yeah, it actually kind of does look like a sleep shirt thing. Wear it in public, I dare you. Tempted. Tasteful shirt. Brave of you. Fantastic. Alright guys, I'm gonna wrap up. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for your good suggestions. We'll be back on either Thursday or Friday with another letter. Good. GTFO sheet. Okay, we'll catch you then.